Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. And today I want to talk about burnout, but specifically I want to talk about how gentle parenting, connected parenting, the parenting model that I teach on this podcast may be accidentally leading to mom burnout. So I want to start by talking about a specific type of burnout. It's the type of tired that you feel not from a day where you've been like running around with your kids and, just really busy and there's been a lot going on. That kind of tired is typical mom tired. But there's another type of tired that's an emotional exhaustion. And a lot of times that happens when you have spent your day with a kid who has a lot of emotional volatility and you've done, quote, a good job with them. You have been narrating their feelings, naming their emotions, getting down on the floor, validating, reflecting back, checking in, making sure everyone felt seen and heard and understood. And then when bedtime comes around, you're completely wiped out. You have no emotional energy for yourself, for your partner, for anything at all. You were just because you were on the entire time. So if that's familiar to you, this episode is for you because I think a lot of us have been doing something exhausting in the name of good parenting, including myself. And I want to talk about it honestly today. I want to talk about how burned out we are from the parenting practices that I teach on this podcast. And I want to give you a better approach and a better way to view your children's emotions so you don't have to do so much emotional labor. Because I know you're tired. I know you're burned out. And I've seen it even in Instagram and TikTok trends, and even in the Wall Street Journal, there's this beta mom movement. It's like the opposite of the alpha mom, right? The tiger mom. Moms are saying, I'm burned out. I don't want to hyper manage and hyper control and hyper engineer my child's childhood because I don't think it's healthy. And I'm telling you it's not. And also, you're tired, right? And so there's this pressure in the past that women have been told that they need to optimize every single part of family life. And there's a movement against that pressure, right? We're burned out and you're probably burned out yourself, but you also want to do right by your kids. And you're just not quite sure, what does that even mean? And how are you supposed to do that? That's something I want to talk about today. So here's what I keep thinking about. Like a lot of the burnout conversations, they focus on logistics, right? Scheduling, activities, the mental load of running a household. And that's a really important part of parenting. And I know for me personally, we made choices to not have our kids in club sports, to only have one sport at a time, to not do too much extracurriculars, and not worry about like whether our kids were going to do well getting into college and things like that. We did not hyper focus on academics. We did not hyper focus on social engineering or enrichment. We hyper focused on emotional maturity and emotional health in my family. I've talked about it in Simplify Your Life, which is one of the best podcast episodes, the most popular podcast episodes, where I talk about how I kept my life really simple when I was raising kids so that I didn't feel burned out. But there's this other part of burnout that comes from emotional overfunctioning, from believing that a good connected parent needs to be emotionally available and responsive to every single feeling that moves through your kid's body. And I want to get you out of the belief that you have to do that you have to be, in order to be a good emotionally connected parent, that you need to be attending to every single emotion or even a lot of them, right? I want you to begin to see your family as a little more holistically, and how does emotion fit into your family? What does self-regulation mean, and what's your job in that? So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about emotional coaching, right? I even have a tool, the connection tool, and it's, narrate, name, validate, regulate. Right? It's like I've taught you a tool that helps you help your kids emotionally regulate and self-regulate. And I still believe in that tool. It's really important to help your kids move through big feeling cycles. It works, it's real, and it's a very great tool. But I think somewhere in my own teaching and in the broader gentle parenting conversation or connected parenting conversation, the message got a little distorted. It went from your child's feelings matter to something closer to it's your job to attend to, name, and soothe every feeling your child has in real time, or you're not doing this right. And the second version of it's your job to attend to every big feeling cycle that your child has and manage every emotion they have, that is too big of a job. And it's actually a job that our kids need us to do less. We need them to struggle more. We need them to work through their big feelings without necessarily an emotional coach attending to and problem solving alongside of them. So today I want to recalibrate. I don't want to abandon connection by any means. I just want to talk a little bit more about how to have emotional regulation and connection be a value in your family without it leading to so much burnout and hyper-intensive parenting. So a few things are true at once, right? Right now, mothers are spending more time with their kids than mothers did a generation or two ago. It's intensive time. It's not just time spent. They're also parenting intensively, right? And part of what I've been teaching is maybe made you think that you're supposed to be this intensive parent and be really attentive. So intensive parenting is this belief that a mother has to actively attend to every facet of a child's development, and that's the bar, right? It's pretty much perfection is the bar, and anything, if you don't help your kids emotionally regulate, if you don't plan their curriculum, their academic journey, their social life, their extracurriculars, all of that, that they're going to be set up for failure. And I want to free you from that children are really resilient, that your child has the ability to learn to self-regulate and self-soothe, and it's actually their job to figure that out. So it's a funny time because we have this intensive parenting trend, right? Mothers in the 80s and before that, 90s, they were not taught to care about their kids' emotional life. And they were just, making sure their kids went to school, ate food, went to bed, kind of the basics. And we've added this emotional coaching piece to children's childhood experience because we recognize that if you grow up without having anyone talk to you or validate your feelings, you can grow up not knowing about your feelings, not knowing how to manage your feelings, squashing them, people pleasing, doing destructive actions, things like that. So it's really important that we have this new part of parenting. But what's happened is it's created this intensive parenting, and there's this pushback against it. So I wonder if you, as a parent right now on social media and reading TikTok and magazines and whatever your articles and blogs and all the things and podcasts, right, all the stuff, you're taking in so much information. I wonder if you feel confused because on one hand, it's yes, you need to be their emotional coach, and then on the other hand, back off and let them figure it out themselves. It can be very confusing. So I want to reframe today as I want to make a distinction between connection and what we're going to call management. So there's a difference between connection, which is I see you, I'm here, your inner world matters to me. When I first started teaching parent education 15 years ago, maybe more now, I would have to say to parents, hey, your kids' feelings matter. Now I find myself saying rules matter. So we've done a good job at recognizing that kids' inner world matters and that I want you as their parent to recognize that they are having an inner experience and they are having an authentic emotional experience, and it is hard for them to figure out how to cope with the world. But on the opposite side, we have management, which is when you take on the job of identifying their feelings, naming it correctly, validating it in the right words, helping them processing, making sure they're regulated, all before you can move on with the day. If you are in a chronic state of management of your kid's emotion, the problem with that is that they end up not becoming self-managers, self-soothers, self-regulators. The more you support them, I want there to be almost a give and take. You coach them, you teach them about their feelings, then you let them have their big feelings without necessarily the connection tool being applied. The thing is, you don't need to manage your children's emotional experience. I want you to be connected to them, connection through a relationship. But I don't want you to see their feelings as something you need to manage, predict, plan for, accommodate. That's just so much work for you. It's a job that has no time off, right? Because your kids have an emotional life all of the time. So your kid, they really don't need you to manage their emotional experience. What they need is for you to let them know that their feelings matter, and you give them the belief that they can manage those feelings. So you want on one hand to say, your feelings matter in this family, and on the other hand say, and you can manage those feelings, even when the circumstances are uncomfortable. The second part is the piece that I think is getting skipped often. We're focused on proving that the first part, your feelings matter, I see you, I validate you. Then we forget to communicate the second part, which is actually the part that builds capability, that builds resilience. If I believe as your parent that you can handle this problem, then I don't have to jump in and fix it or soothe or even acknowledge what's happening. I can trust that my child can figure it out and come out on the other side. Now, sometimes, of course, kids have really big emotions and they do need support. So I don't want you to start ignoring those big emotions, but I want you to stop worrying so much about emotion, about negative emotion. We all have it. It comes and goes. So let me make this a little concrete because I think it'll be useful for you to have some examples. So, you don't have to solve every feeling. So if your kid is frustrated that their tower fell down or something like that, or they can't finish their assignment or their picture didn't come out the way they wanted it to, or it's, earlier bedtime than they wanted it to be, you don't need to always swoop in and say, I see you're feeling frustrated. That must feel so disappointing. Sometimes that's true and it's helpful to narrate a name out loud. And sometimes it's just a shitty circumstance and your kid is allowed to feel annoyed and then move through that feeling, rebuild that tower, or go to sleep, or start their project again or their picture again. Not every frustration needs to be a moment where you self-regulate, right? Where you co-regulate. I want you to allow for some frustrations to just be normal. And the more okay you are, I've always said that, be comfortable with your kids' discomfort. When they're upset or annoyed or frustrated, just let it be okay. So you also don't have to validate every feeling out loud. This is something I think when people first start working in my program that they'll feel a little bit confused about because you get gung-ho about the connection tool. And the connection tool, narrate, name, validate, regulate, can be done aloud, and it can also be done silently within yourself. And I think if we don't feel like we have to perform parenting, that we are just in a state that is compassionate, that we are recognizing, yep, that's frustrating, I hear you, and you can figure this out. Whether you say that or you just give them a face and you give them a look, that can be enough. So if you validated every single feeling that moved through your child today, you'd both be exhausted and there'd be no room left for just living. So sometimes being silent, giving a warm look, continuing to make dinner while your kid is grumpy near you, that's also connection. It says, I'm not worried about your feelings. I don't need to fix them. I trust they will pass. And that is a form of co-regulation, actually. Your calm nervous system is something that they can just kind of tap into and borrow for the next 90 seconds until they get back to a regulated state. You don't have to intervene when your kid is bored or grumpy or having a minor conflict. It's like we don't have to attend to every moment that our child has discomfort. They don't need it to be narrated and processed by an adult. They need to know you're steady and present and that they're allowed to have the feeling without it becoming like something that you are hyper-focused on. So your presence is the actual intervention, not the commentary. So a lot of emotional coaching at its best, it's not about the words. It's about your calm nervous system in the room and your kids co-regulating off of that. That happens whether you say something or not. So you can be deeply connected to your child without doing much. And that will prevent burnout. When you just allow negative emotion and you obviously teach your kids the best practices of ways to process that negative emotion, the ways to move through those big feelings, then your child learns to internalize those methods and they are able to practice those on their own. So yes, you do need to teach a little bit and you need to co-regulate, but I want you to feel like you don't have to do it all day, every day. So I don't want this to sound like stop paying attention to your kids' feelings, because that's not it. When a feeling is big, real distress, real fear, real grief shows up, I want you to get close, get calm, help them find the words if they want them. That's still really, really important. It's worth the energy. You will continue to emotionally coach your children, but what I want to invite you to is only needing to do that when the feeling is so unmanageable for them that they need support. I don't want you to go in and manage right away, because this will build the foundation that your feelings matter here and I trust you to handle these hard things. So you can start to say that sentence to your kid or some version of it. You can say, yes, it's okay to be upset. I understand. And you can handle upset. You can handle disappointment. So in that validation piece in the connection tool, you're validating their emotion, but you're also validating their own agency, their own autonomy, their own capability. You're validating their resilience. Now, don't bypass, don't rush it. If your child needs to move through their feeling, they can, but trust that they will and that they'll do it on their own. So the shift is that instead of being the emotional processor for every feeling, you are a steady foundation underneath your family that feelings matter and feelings can be handled, that we can handle our big feelings. That is the bigger shift I want you to take from this episode, is that you don't have to always be doing connection. When you have a really big feeling cycle, I'd love for you to be able to be compassionate. But if you are in your own state of dysregulation or burnout or you're overwhelmed, you can also communicate to your children that they can handle this, that they're going to be okay. And that will teach them how to self-regulate and self-soothe, which is the most important thing that you can give your kids, is the gift of self-regulation. So here's what I want you to walk away with today. The exhaustion that you might be feeling isn't a sign that you're not connected to your kids or you're not doing a good job. Your burnout might be a sign that you're doing more emotional labor than the relationship actually requires. You can let your kid have a grumpy hour without narrating it. You can let boredom sit there without solving it. You can let a small frustration pass without validating it out loud. None of that makes you less connected or not doing your job. It makes connection sustainable, and it teaches your kid that they are capable of having a feeling and getting through it. So this week, I want you to try this. I want you to think about the next time that your kid has a small, like garden variety negative feeling, like bored, annoyed, mildly grumpy. Try saying nothing. Just stay near them, keep your own energy calm, and see what happens without you managing it. You might notice that they're more capable of overcoming that emotion than you give them credit for. And you might notice that you have some energy left at the end of the day. So that's it for today. I want you to go be steady, but don't give all of your energy to your kids. I want you to hold back a little bit so that you don't end up in a burnout, resentment cycle. Okay, I will talk to you next week. I hope you have a great week as we wrap up these last few weeks of summer. I hope you enjoy the time. And if you aren't enjoying it, also, that's fine too. It's okay. Sometimes being a mom is kind of frustrating and boring. So I want to normalize that for you as well as we wrap up these few last weeks before school starts. All right, we'll talk to you next week. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.